Now, moving on to the angels of the apocalypse. Revelation 8:6. Then the seven angels who had the seven trumpets prepared to sound them. The seven angels. This is a 14th century source. And let me make some remarks about number 7 again. Number 7 is one of the lucky numbers in Revelation. There are 7 churches there, 7 spirits of God, 7 lamps, 7 seals, the lamb with 7 horns and 7 eyes, 7 angels with trumpets, 7 thunders, 7 heads of the beast, 7 plagues angels. The text itself is divided into 4 series of 7. As I told you before, number 7 is special because number 7 symbolizes harmony, fulfillment, completion. Remember the 7 days of creation. On the 7th day, God rested because he realized that creation was perfect. So number 7 is the symbol of perfection. And the whole book of Revelation is centered around number 7. Revelation chapter 15, verse 1. I saw in heaven another great and marvelous sign, 7 angels with the 7 last plagues. Last, because with them God's wrath is completed. Now, let me tell you about angels in Revelation. Angels in Revelation are not angels that are familiar to us from Hallmark postcards. Angels in Revelation are not those, fatty, smiling children with big cheeks. Not, our guardian angels who are looking down to save us. Angels of Revelation are very different, and they basically have 3 functions. The angels of Revelation adore God. Number 2, they control nature, and they can also initiate some natural disasters. And finally, angels in Revelation are instruments of destruction. And this is one of the reasons the book was so controversial. So the angels are associated with violence and destruction in the book of Revelation. But in the medieval art, we do not see those angels. We see nice spiritual beings who are involved in some kind of activity that does not seem to be violent. Generally speaking, medieval art, as you may know, since it was sponsored by the church, followed exactly in the spirit and the letter the teaching of the church. And therefore, in medieval art, we see a pretty straightforward, literal illustration, spiritual illustration, what they would call illumination, of certain passages without any artistic freedom. In terms of perspective and color, medieval art is using the so-called unnatural colors, which means that the colors in the painting do not correspond to the color in real life, may not correspond. And the surface of the painting is flattened. They do not know yet the Renaissance perspective. And that's what you basically see in all kinds of medieval depictions of various scenes from Revelation, be it in the 9th century or in the 11th or 12th or 13th century. The change will come when we will see some of the Renaissance pictures. So this is the plague angels, and this is our earliest source. Remember Beatus of Liébana. Beatus of Liébana, who composed his book, compiled his book on the book of Revelation. This is one of the illuminations from the book. The earliest example of Christian apocalyptic art, 8th century. Revelation chapter 8, verse 8 and 9. The second angel sounded his trumpet, and something like a huge mountain, all ablaze, was thrown into the sea. A third of the sea turned into blood, a third of the living creatures in the sea died, and a third of the ships were destroyed. The second trumpet, this is the 14th century source. Revelation chapter 9, verse 1, 2 and 3. The fifth angel sounded his trumpet, and I saw a star that had fallen from the sky to the earth. The star was given the key to the shaft of the abyss. When he opened the abyss, smoke rose from it like the smoke from a gigantic furnace. The sun and sky were darkened by the smoke from the abyss, and out of the smoke locusts came down on the earth and were given power like that of scorpions of the earth. So this is the fifth angel and the locust. This is the 14th century source depicting this passage. And here comes our first Renaissance source, 15th century source, the fifth angel sounding the trumpet. Revelation chapter 18, verse 21. Then a mighty angel picked up a boulder the size of a large millstone and threw it into the sea and said, with such violence the great city of Babylon will be thrown down, never to be found again. So here is the angel. Angel cast the millstone into the sea. This is 13th century source. Revelation chapter 19, verse 17, 18. And I saw an angel standing in the sun. This is one of the rare instances when the angel is not destroying anything, but is controlling nature, standing in the sun, who cried in a loud voice to all the birds flying in midair, "Come gather together for the great supper of God, so that you may eat the flesh of kings, generals, and the mighty, of horses and their riders, and the flesh of all people, free and slave, great and small." So this is the angel standing in the sun, 8th century source, our earliest source from the book of the Spanish monk.